August of 1987, software developer Rare released its first console-based video game. And that game was Slalom for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Let's pop it in the old NES, give it a try for this review. As you can see, Slalom is a 1 or 2 player skiing game, and it's downhill skiing, or alpine skiing as it's called, and not cross-country. I think a cross-country skiing video game would be pretty boring and not too successful. Unless, of course, it was released for the Nintendo Wii. Then it could be marketed as some kind of exercise. Anyhow, back to Slalom. So in Slalom, you have a choice of 3 different mountains, and they're essentially 3 different levels of difficulty. They have each mountain has unique courses, so it's not purely 3 levels of difficulty of the same terrain, but 3 distinct mountains with distinct courses. And each mountain has 8 courses on it. So that brings you to a total of 24 different ski trails you can ski in this game. For the purposes of this review, I chose the intermediate mountain, and that's titled Steep Peak. The beginner mountain is called Snowy Hill, and the expert mountain is called Mount Nasty. Which, by the way, I still use that reference when I go skiing to this day. If it's a particularly tough mountain, I'll call it Mount Nasty, because it's just that cool of a name. So the object in Slalom is to complete the courses in the set amount of time or less. And to do that, you have to navigate your way down the mountain, avoiding obstacles like trees, snowmen, and little children sledding across the mountain, which I think is a little bit dangerous and unrealistic. And also you have to avoid the other skiers that could potentially trip you up like they just did right there. Now as you ski down the mountain and avoid all the obstacles, you'll want to steer yourself between the gates as you go down the course. If you miss a gate, you put on the brakes for a second and it slows you up. But there isn't a time penalty per se for missing the gate, it just slows your character sprite down. Also, occasionally you'll see moguls, and if you happen to hit the mogul just right, and it's not very easy to do, the moguls are very small and you have to hit them precisely in the center, your character will launch into the air. And when he's in the air, if you hold the down button on the D-pad, he will do a little freestyle move, and it'll tally up points for how long you can hold it. See, I got 15 freestyle points in that. That means I held the freestyle move in the air for 15 clicks. Now let me talk about controls in Slalom for a second. Your D-pad obviously controls your character. But there are only 2 degrees of articulation for each direction and turning, which means you can turn it very hard or not so hard, but there's no in between those 2 degrees on either turning left or right. So it makes steering quite difficult. This game would it would appear to be easy in concept, but because of the controls, it's actually a little difficult. If this game was played on something with like an analog joystick, it would be much easier. But that's part of the challenge of the game. Now, on the Nintendo control pad, the A and B buttons both have the same function in this game, and that is to jump. And depending on how fast you're going, that will determine how high your jump is. Now, you don't have to hit the jump button when you hit a mogul. The jump feature is just strictly to avoid obstacles like snowmen, other skiers, or children on sleds. Or even trees. If you're going at top speed, you can jump over trees or people like that. Now the one thing I would like to talk about in this game is the odd choice in character detail with your in-game character. And yeah, basically for the entire whole duration of gameplay, you're staring at your character's ass, and it's like really detailed. It's just a bit disturbing. I don't know. And another thing I'd like to mention is that although, yes, Slalom is a skiing game in general appearance, it really isn't. It's more of a race game. It operates under the same constraints and gameplay style as your standard racing game with checkpoint systems and whatnot. And in fact, when Slalom was developed, Rare made this racing type scenario with their game engine and found that it worked very well with a white track and gray background. It just, the technical details in that, I'm not quite sure why it would work better, but it seemed to have the least amount of graphical glitches when they did that. So they decided to make a skiing game instead of a racing game with a white road. I don't know, interesting stuff. I definitely recommend picking up Slalom. It's a great little game. The only problem is it's not available on the Wii Virtual Console, so you have to pick it up on the NES. But that may change in the future. I'm Dommy from Classic Games Revisited. Until next time.